Welcome to Trading the Close on this Thursday. I'm Toni Valliere with Verified Investing, and here is what's making headlines today. U.S. jobless claims fall to their lowest level in a month, declining by 12,000 to 201,000. Existing home sales rise 3% to start the year. Now, tens of thousands of you, possibly you watching, Verizon and AT&T and T-Mobile customers across the U.S. experienced an outage, causing a disruption in cell service and texting. Nvidia's earnings report sent the stock surging and the market along with it. So let's take a look at where things stand right now. Just minutes before the closing bell, we saw a lot of green, and we are still seeing green across the board. We've got the Dow up 532 points, up almost, over 1%, 1.39%. We've got the NASDAQ up 476 points, up 3%. The S&P 500 hit a record, up 86 points, up over 1%, 1.70%. Oil is up as well, 0.55%. Gold down $1, a little over $1. We've got Bitcoin up $167 at this hour. My first special guest today is Paul Sampson, verified trader and crypto trader. So let's take a look at today's rally. What do you make of this? Any surprises today?
Toni, always a pleasure to be back, although it's not on our traditional hump day.
Hump day, I know. This is Baby Friday, though.
Exactly, it is. Friday Junior, right?
Yep.
So, the markets obviously rallied back today. Yesterday was a nice little pullback, substantial pullback in some of the stocks. We saw like 20 and 30% on like SMCI and Nvidia going into those earnings yesterday. I just want to start off with the S&P 500. So we're coming into new all-time highs here. Next major area I'm looking at is actually just above where we're at right now, which is coming into like 5,100 to 5,200. It's a trend-based golden pocket Fibonacci extension. So similar to how when we look for the retrace on the downside, I can actually pull that to, just locate some new areas when you're running into price discovery, which is coming into pretty much where we're at right now. The other one is Nvidia, right? Is, obviously taking the world by storm, right? So last week, we were looking at this region here. I kind of brought up this 1.618 extension as well as the 2.618. So same deal where you're looking at something that has no price history in that region. You kind of have to have some regions to look for as we continue upward to get a little area to, formulate some resistance, things like that. I pulled this from the swing high here to that swing low. We could see how the 1.618 was respected for quite a while. We broke that. And last week, we were actually trading right into that 740. We got that initial pullback earlier on this week into those earnings, and then all of a sudden this morning it just went gangbusters.
Just surged, yes.
Like 30-something%, I think, in today.
That's a technical term, gangbusters, right?
It is today, yeah. It should be. It's honestly wild. So, and it's just one of those things. It's just, like everybody's trying to, come in and, either catch an area where, to catch a decent short at. It's such a, the increase in price is definitely not something where you can just come in and buy at. Honestly, I don't know who's buying at these levels at this point. But like we were talking about last week, we were coming in hitting our head here, and if we flip that, I was looking up to the $831 area, which I think is
if it keeps
the
going,
next one, for
which
where we
is
can
looking
see.
that way right now. But what goes up must come down
exactly.
eventually.
I do think that this is going to be a really big sell-off at some point. I mean, like I pointed out last time, where you see this almost curvature, in the price action. That's just kind of like slow, almost like they call it taking the stairs on the way up, and then generally you take the elevator on the way down. Well, we took a few stairs, and now we're taking the elevator up. It's just it's getting frothy. If it has already been frothy, and it's just getting frothier at the day by day.
We'll be keeping an eye on that, of course. Some of the other big market movers today: Supermicro, Rivian, Lucid, Moderna, Sunrun, Royal Caribbean. I wanted to mention those, but I do want to ask if you would bring up AT&T, because I'm just curious. I know there were several carriers that had issues, but AT&T is the one that most people are talking about.
Right.
I think it maybe affected the most with AT&T. Is it impacting the stock?
That's the one I was going to bring up anyway, so that's perfect. I don't really think so. I mean, we definitely had like a little bit of a pullback today, but unlike some of the other things we were just looking at, it's one of the ones that are actually pulling back. But I mean, as you can see here, I mean, we're just pretty much just kind of ranging around in this region here. So we did start the day off in this area here, $17 just about. Fell down to a little bit above 16. So like I said, it's nothing.
Not dramatic.
Yeah, nothing out of the ordinary, and just when looking at that price action. But that was definitely a buzz for the day to see all the
No doubt.
carriers
Did
and
you escape
outages.
it?
I did, yeah. Verizon
Same
for me,
here.
and I was all good. So
We lucked
kudos
out
to them.
so far. Okay, lastly, got to touch on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
How has this big rally today impacted the cryptoverse, I
Yeah,
should say?
so Bitcoin has actually just been taking a snooze. I've kind of had this pulled up here for the last couple of days here, right? So one of the best, things I look for just as in a trading sense on Bitcoin or any asset is when they come through and we take some higher time frame highs and lows. And pretty much Bitcoin yesterday came up, kind of swept the previous week high. So anybody that's been kind of building a short position up in this area, kind of swept it here, came back into this region, and it's just been range bound. It's actually had almost no price movement compared to everything else, which is kind of odd because generally.
Okay, I was going to ask if that's surprising.
It is and it isn't, I guess. But it's at times when you get those big moves like that in the stock market, you generally will see a little bit of volatility as well with crypto. And yeah, we've really seen nothing. Towards the end of the day here, we got this little move right there, which was probably just from under 52K, and now we're sitting just basically back to under 52K once again. I know Ethereum kind of pushed up to 3,000. It was kind of hovering around that 2980 area, but really nothing out of the ordinary. Very similar to AT&T, they pretty much just kind of trended sideways. So it's interesting. I am looking for this region to really resolve or break, I would say, this range with a pretty big move. So I am really paying attention for that current high just above us, about 53K. But otherwise, if we start to come down and lose some of these regions, maybe tomorrow the stock market pulls back after this huge run today. Bitcoin is looking down to maybe 49K and potentially we challenge last week's lows at 47.
All right. Thank you, Paul. We appreciate it. Always
Pleasure.
great to have you. And we will get back to hump day next week. I promise you. All right, let's get to my next guest, Wesley Pryor. He is the founder of Acheron Trading. He's also a licensed CPA in the state of Florida. Wesley, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here on Trading the Close. I know you are local. Next time I got to get you here in our brand new studio. Are you in Fort Myers right now?
Thanks so much for having me, Tony. I would love to visit in person next time. I'm actually in Fort Lauderdale at the moment.
On the other side of the state, maybe a little too far to be driving over. Let's talk about the rally today. What are your takeaways from today's trading? What do you make of this big rally?
Yeah, absolutely. So just to caveat, my company is a digital asset market maker. But what you're seeing with Nvidia is actually pouring over into the digital asset industry and markets as well. So if you take a look at the chart for digital tokens like Render, RNDR, or Akash, AKT, these are actually doing exceptionally well, and they're related to decentralized compute. So those are, trustless markets for leasing out idle GPU resources, which kind of ties back to demand for Nvidia as well. So thematically, Nvidia is kind of touching more than just your traditional equity market.
Okay, so it's having a positive impact on cryptocurrencies. Do you find it concerning, though, that one stock has so much power over the market right now? Because we do know what goes up must come down.
Yeah, absolutely. I find it concerning, in any asset class where speculation is the main driver. But in this case, we're talking about fundamental demand for the underlying assets. So, you've got a confluence of AI innovation, which is GPU heavy. Gaming trends are up and climbing, also GPU heavy. Digital asset mining, which has historically been very GPU heavy. Even though cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin are no longer tied mainly to GPU mining, others are. And then, like I mentioned, there's a big trend in crypto right now related to decentralized computation markets, and that's really a fancy way of saying that people are leasing out idle GPU resources. So if you're a gamer and you've got your computer open, you're not playing games, you could be leasing out your untapped GPU to someone else trustlessly, peer-to-peer on the internet, and getting paid for that. This is also driving fundamental demand for GPU resources. So That's how I would answer that question. I think it's strongly driven by the fundamentals, and that's positive.
It sounds awesome. It's like, that's so over my head. It sounds so complex, but I know you make it seem so simple. A great way to make money if you know what you're doing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about the economy. Do you see a soft landing happening, and how soon do you believe that we could see rate cuts from the Fed?
Yeah, so I think a lot of what you're seeing in the kind of macro climate right now is we're no longer in an environment where people believe that cash is king, and so you're seeing a rotation, back into equities. I think you're going to continue to see that play out as rate hikes or the Fed starts cutting rates, and that's also translating into the expression of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies as an asset to hold through the coming market cycle. So that's really my position on it. I wouldn't anchor to a hard date. I'll let the professionals like you guys that are following it closely answer that question. But I think everyone universally feels like it's on the horizon. So it's risk on.
What do you think of Bitcoin's movement today? Are you happy with the level that Bitcoin is at right now, and where do you see it headed by the end of the year?
Yeah, look, Bitcoin and other digital assets are so hyper volatile. So it's really hard to look at any single day and have a strong view. But what I would kind of, fall back on is, if you kind of rewind to, Q4 of 2022, the fall of FTX and Alameda, that was a really dark time for the industry. And everyone kind of believed, well, maybe, Bitcoin and Ethereum and digital assets are not really part of the future. And then come this year, 42 days ago, actually, the spot ETFs were approved and they're open in the US. And that kind of points to the industrialization of this asset class, which is extremely positive. And so there's already been 5.14 billion in net inflows to Bitcoin ETFs since they were open. Annualized, that's 44.7 billion per year. The incremental issuance of Bitcoin at current prices would be about $11.2 billion per year. So long story short, there's a lot of net demand coming into this asset class. And I think that's going to drive us absolutely to higher prices before the end of the year.
You make a great point, but I want to know what you think of the ECB officials criticizing the cryptocurrency, calling it unsuitable for payment or investment, basically calling it worthless.
Yeah, I think, anytime there's a new technology in the history of the world, there's going to be people and even, very intelligent people and institutions that don't believe in that, and they don't really understand, what they're talking about or what they're looking at. And then, the technology, once it's invented, it continues to get adopted. You can't uninvent Bitcoin. And the market has told us that there's value in Bitcoin. Like I just mentioned, the ETFs were greenlit. There's been $5 billion in inflows already. So I think they're going to look in retrospect and feel, pretty silly and kind of wish that they took a more informed position on the asset and the technology in general.
Let's talk about your company, Acheron Trading. Tell us about the name and what you all offer.
Yeah, so the name is, a bit nerdy, but again, we're in the digital asset industry, so we can get away with it.
It's got a story.
Yeah, it does. So, we were inspired for the name from the book and movie, Master and Commander. And one of the French warships is called the Acheron in that movie. And it really resonated with us as a trading firm where, our strategies are never permanent. They're always needing to evolve. And, much like kind of being at battle, you always have to innovate. And so that's just something we kind of, look towards with how we govern ourselves and continue to innovate, the company and the strategies. And just to give you a quick overview of what we actually do, it's very hard to explain, but I'll try my best to make it simple.
I'm sure it is, but it is fascinating.
Yeah, so we're a market maker in digital assets like Bitcoin and other currencies. And so the easiest way to explain what a market maker does is when you log into an exchange like Binance.com and you place an order to buy or sell any given asset on that platform, you're going to be trading against a market maker. And the market maker, like us, we're providing liquidity at whatever the prevailing price might be. And that really enables you as the end user to trade that asset with minimal slippage and, buy or sell like you're trying to do, for yourself. So that's really our role. It's really as a technology company providing systematic liquidity in different digital assets.
Okay, you kept it simple so that I could understand. Wesley, thank you. I appreciate it very much. Tell everybody where they can go to find out more about your company and their services.
Absolutely. So you can go to acherontrading.com, find out more about us. We also have a thought leadership blog. If you scroll down to the bottom of that page, and that's a really good entry point if you're trying to learn more about market making in the digital asset industry specifically.
Wesley Pryor, thank you so much, founder of Acheron Trading. We appreciate your time and your insight. Have a great rest of the day. And next time we'll get you in the studio here.
Let's do it. Thanks for having me.
Sounds good. Enjoy Fort Lauderdale. How can you not, right? Well, thank you for watching Trading the Close on this Thursday. We will be back on Monday. Make it a great rest of the week.